ED, when Kyle Shanahan talked to the media earlier this week, he mentioned that his team was just managing, right? It's been a tough week. I think the whole football community, really the entire world, has been touched by Damar Hamlin's injury. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it here on this one. This is the Believe in
Yeah.
49ers podcast on Believe. He is Super Bowl champion Eric Davis. Plenty to get to on this show, of course. Damar Hamlin still continuing to fight for his life. We'll discuss him and his impact and what's it meant for the world of football, and of course how the Niners now turn the page, being a part of that NFL community, which you know so well, Ed. How they continue to march forward here as they prepare for what on paper is a very big game against the Arizona Cardinals. You got an opportunity, an outside chance at that, to get the number one seed, as they right now are in the two seed and have an opportunity to secure that. As always, we want to remind you to continue to download, subscribe, rate, and review located wherever you find your podcast. If there's a like or follow button on your particular podcast subscription service, hit that like or follow button. Give us a like on YouTube as well. That's Believe in 49ers. Feel free to hit us up on social media. I'm at Haylock on Twitter. He is at _ Eric Davis _. And on Instagram, I am at Watch Ray Ray. He is at ED25. As always, we are brought to you by the fine folks at Bet Online. Look, whatever you want, Bet Online has you covered. NBA in full swing. You got the college football playoff national championship game coming up in just a few days. We're less than a week away from that one. NFL regular season potentially coming to an end this Sunday as well. So whatever you want, BetOnline has you covered. Just go ahead to the website betonline.ag for 50% back on your welcome deposit using the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts. He is Super Bowl champion Eric Davis. I'm Rahshaun Haylock. So Ed, it's been an interesting week, to say the least. Uh I I am in awe, in a sense, of um how so many people have sort of come together rallying around this one cause, per se. And that's uplifting Damar Hamlin. I mean, you see him getting prayed for on national TV. You've seen candlelight vigils. His GoFundMe for his foundation, in which he likes to give back to folks from his hometown in Western PA, has now reached, at the time of this recording, reached over $6 million from people all over the world. It's been really incredible to see that, with so much raw, and we've talked about this before on this podcast, right? We don't really stray away from topics if they're worth, being discussed. And with so much that can be classified as wrong about this country, um, sports is really one of those things that really can bring so many people together.
Yeah.
And that's been, and what has been, just a rough week and a rough thing to see. And it's a shame that you kind of have to experience this to kind of see that. But that has been a bright spot, in which has been a tough situation here.
Yeah, that was very well stated, man. It would be nice if it didn't have to be dire circumstances for everybody to care about one another and have genuine concern and empathy for others. 'Cause that's what sports bring out, and an injury like this has brought out. It's tragic, man. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous game. I talk about it, and I've always said it's a gladiator sport. And on the pod and after the pod and everything, I told you, we'll talk about it before, and I'll tell you, like, I have no desire whatsoever to run into anybody like that. And I've told you before, like, I look at it now and I'm like, I can't believe I did it then. Um, I'm very fortunate. I saw that injury and I told my wife, I'm very fortunate to play the game the way I played it, at the size I played it, for as long as I played it, and not have something devastating happen like that. I'm very blessed. And yeah, it's amazing that everyone has come together, because sports is that melting pot where you can have absolutely nothing in common with an individual. Nothing in common. You can be polar opposites in your everyday life, in every aspect, be it good or bad, and still root for the same colors and have the same love for the colors and have that unity in those colors that you wouldn't have on anything else. And that's what sports does. And I think that's a part of why um, everyone is so touched by this. Not to mention that um, for a brief moment, because it's going to pass, we know it's going to pass, and everyone's going to get back to normal, and they're going to forget about Hamlin, and unfortunately, but for a brief moment, the helmet. I say this to you all the time. The helmet is glass. People actually see the human being in there.
Mm.
All the time I get asked, why do you refer to these guys by their numbers? That's so disrespectful. Why do you do this? And I try to explain to people, I refer to them by numbers because I'm critiquing the play. I'm critiquing the player, not the human, not the man, not the person. And because people forget that that's a person doing a job, it's a dangerous job. And people saw that that's a person. Um, and that's why there's so much concern. And that part of it, I actually felt good about that. People like, okay, like why are we playing this game? I started looking at some of the social media, like what's going on, and I know the guys in the studio, they were waiting and they were waiting to see it, and I know the NFL was waiting because it's a business. And as much as they didn't want to, they're sitting here thinking about how much money we got to give back to these sponsors. Um, how is that going to affect things moving forward? They're thinking about all of the business aspect of it, as opposed, that's concern number one for those guys. But this guy's mom was at the game, man.
Yeah.
Man, and that's scary for mom. My mom never watched my games live. She
Mm.
would wait for me to call her. She would literally wait for me to call her. She would videotape them, wait for me to call her so that she knew I was okay, and then she could watch the game. So it's dangerous. It's a dangerous sport. I hope this. You know what I mean. Like as you said, just prayers that he just continues to get better. Word is he's getting stronger. You hope that. And you think about this. This was a 24-year-old
Yeah.
world class
24
athlete.
years old. Yeah.
24-year-old world class athlete in as good a shape as he'll probably ever be in. And that it just lets you know the violence of the game. So we get on this and we get the tweets and we get the comments about what's happening, and people sit there and they call these guys bums and they can't this and they can't that and they're sorry, and I've said it. The reason you feel that way and the reason you think you can do it and you refer to these guys in that manner is because they are so good at it
Yeah.
that they make it look easy.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. When you talk about the Jimmy being horrible and 10 can't this and Trey stuff, and I'm like, guys, what they do out there is hard and we see is dangerous. So, hopefully some of this empathy lasts a little bit longer. I know you go cheer for your colors and you're gonna boo when you don't like it, and that's a part of it, is entertainment. But sometimes, like I say, critique the play. Critique the play.
Yeah.
You know,
It's you mentioned that about your mom, and my wife was here and we were watching the game together, and she sort of picked up on it before I did. I mean, you see a guy go down and you kind of get like kind of numb to this stuff, right?
yeah.
You just assume, the training staff is going to come out and and things will be okay. Then you start to notice that it's different. But the first thing she said was, "Oh my gosh, like I hope someone is there. Like I hope he has some family there or something."
Hmm.
And my first thought was, I don't know, because it's a road game, right? This game was not in Buffalo. It was in Cincinnati. So I'm I don't know. I don't know if his family
Yeah.
was there or not. And once we hear that, then that kind of brought about some relief just to know that he had some support there because I mean you need that you need that and I just dealing with my own personal struggles. Anytime you go to the hospital or you're receiving any type of medical support, like you need someone there who understands you and knows you and can speak to doctors or whatnot on your behalf, and even advocate you at times if that's even called for. And I, it's, it's, it was for. I keep hearing this over and over. Like he was fortunate in the sense that it happened where it happened, right on an NFL field, and I did a story on it.
In some aspects, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did a story on the father of a young man, high school football player, 14 years old, collapsed at the end of practice. And because there was no AED on site,
Yeah.
he didn't make it, right? Like they had that there available for Hamlin, right? They had all the necessary things that they were needed to be able to help him in that situation. And so just fortunate for that. But just seeing the look on those guys' faces, his teammates, I remember watching a high school coaching. I was actually coaching a basketball game, and you see, and one of the officials, one of the referees, had a cardiac experience right there it was during the free throw, right there on the baseline, just collapse. And that is a moment that is etched in my. Every time I drive past that high school, I think back about
Hmm.
that moment, and all the things that we were sort of going through at that time. And so, I pray for Hamlin and his family, but not just that. His teammates, the Bengals players, all those
Yeah.
impacted, and T Higgins as well. I mean, I just unjustly so many people trying to, uh,
That's the most ridiculous
yeah,
thing
uh,
ever. And
it,
that's the most,
that hurt.
I mean,
That hurt.
I don't even know why someone would even put that out there for him to have to even remotely carry that or have to, answer questions about that. Of course, he wasn't trying in any way. How could you possibly think that that's going to be an issue? And I mean, and even and for someone to try to get into that and talk about it, this wasn't some dirty play. It wasn't. I mean, it was football.
It was a routine play.
It was football. It was a tackle. It was a tackle that if he gets up from it, I say it all the time. One of the things I've always said about a safety is that you got to learn how to tackle on your back. I would talk about that with
Yeah.
the young safety, but you got to learn how to tackle. Tim McDonald used to tell me that all the time. When we would watch him. And he was like, that kid doesn't know how to tackle on his back. And I asked him about that. And it was like, you got to learn how to absorb the lick because it's just you and a guy one on one. You're not going to stone him. You can't miss the tackle. So you got to absorb the blow. And it looked like that's what he's doing. He came in high just to make the tackle, get the guy on the ground. He did.
Yeah.
And
You
so
see,
something
yeah,
freakish happened,
yeah.
you know?
You see that play. I've seen that play happen countless times, but not until Monday night did I learn that something like this could happen as a result of a play like
Yeah.
this, just in terms of the way the body is wired and the heart is wired and things of that nature.
Well, can
And
I tell you, we would talk about it all the time when I played because I played in the era where that's how you hit people. You hit them with your face. You hit up high, and and we used to always joke about it, about hitting the guy in the sternum and stopping his heart. I didn't know it was an actual thing either.
mm,
I didn't know that that it was like one of those things that coaches would tell you to do and say that's what you're trying to do, but I didn't realize that that could be the effects of a football play.
yeah,
And that's I mean it's we can talk about this forever, and it's just one of those things that's just hard to believe. And when you see it, and I wasn't even watching the game, and you text me like, "Are you seeing this?" And
yeah,
I was like, "Let me cut this on." I
yeah. And that's, I mean, just to pull back the curtain here a little bit. We don't talk during games. We don't talk during games. We don't talk necessarily leading up to the pod. I've kind of just taken that on, personally, just as just for the authenticity of this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, right? I don't want anything
Mm-hmm.
coming in here being rehearsed or whatnot. I don't read. I try not to read your tweets or anything like that coming in,
Mm-hmm.
just so that it's authentic. But this night, I picked up the phone and texted
Yeah.
you. I'm
And
like,
people don't
dude,
realize that, yeah, that it's
are you
rare
watching
that we
this?
do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's rare that we talk about ball like that. But yeah. And when you did it, I was like, what the hell? And then, the whole like 5 minutes get back out there. I'm like, are you kidding me?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I've seen some broken bones and and compound fractures and all kind of things happen. Bad concussions, and that takes you a minute to walk off. Something like this,
yeah,
and I know that ball players, you got to compartmentalize and you got to get out there because they're gonna have to do it soon, and because the league is not going to wait for them. Um, like I say, it's a gladiator sport. People, I say that, and a lot of people brush it off when I say it, but I'm saying it's a certain mindset. You got to be wired a certain way to play this game because it's dangerous, and you know that, and you put it out of your mind. But it's always there. The danger is always there on every single play. So I talk about that obligation, where how you are obligated to do your job because you owe it to that person because of the inherent risk that he's taking. You can't be out there sort of playing
yeah.
because of what could happen on any given play. Like this dude can potentially have given his life to make a play for you. You see my point?
Yeah.
It's that's how dangerous the game is, and you got to do that, and you got to play it accordingly and understand that. But let me stop because I
Yeah,
started thinking
and
about all this.
Troy
Yeah,
Vincent from the NFL, he sort of refuted that whole 5 minute notion since that time. But
well, they
I
had
continue,
to. They
yeah,
had to.
I
Well, you
continue.
know what? I'm sorry about this, but they had to. There's
Yeah,
no way Joe Buck got on there and made that up himself. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. They're lying. There is no way Joe Buck made the decision to say that they are going to start in 5 minutes. He
that,
was told. He was told. You and I have both been announcers.
yeah,
We don't have the we don't you don't have the privilege
yeah.
of deciding that okay, we're not going to commercial right now. I got something to say. They tell you when it's a break. They tell you when to play.
There's a chain of
Right?
communication that goes into absolutely, absolutely.
And there are levels of communication. So he didn't just make that up. Now, I've told you before, there is no sport more reactionary to the Twitterverse than the NFL. They listen. And what happened was they started to see, even on the set of ESPN, they were all sitting there straddling the fence. And I was like, what is going on? Because the first time Booger was saying something, I told my wife, I was like, why don't you just make a choice? Because you're like, I got to wait and see what they're going to say and all this stuff. And then eventually, after the Twitterverse says this game should be called, they started saying it. But no one was saying it at first. The NFL Network didn't even have any. While all this was going on, the NFL Network they were televising an old football game. They were televising a rerun of a football game as opposed to discussing what was happening because it's the NFL Network. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do. That the player wasn't the issue. They were thinking about the business. So back to refuting that you didn't do that. You were thinking about playing, or he would not have said it. Whether you like Joe Buck or not, he doesn't get to make the TV rules.
He's got to play it by him just like the rest of us, right?
That's it. All he's doing is announcing what they're putting in his ear.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
My
don't say that. Don't say that didn't happen.
my thoughts exactly, like it had to come from somewhere, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no way Joe Buck just made that up, with 20 plus years in the game, the way he's
Yes.
been able to do it, the levels he's been able to do it. I continue to lift up and ask God for the healing over Damar Hamlin as he continues to fight for his life.
Yes.
This is the Believe in 49ers podcast on Believe. He is Super Bowl champion Eric Davis. I'm Rahshaun Haylock. So now, how are they going to do it? Wednesday is officially, guys get back on the practice field, kind of the first day of your prep for, Sunday game, so to speak. And Kyle Shanahan saying it's tough, it's sad, for a lot of his guys. But to his knowledge, there's no player with a direct connection to Damar Hamlin, which would add a whole nother level to
Yeah,
it. But just being a part of that NFL fraternity, which you know so well, everybody's affected by it. Kyle
yeah.
affected by it. But as he mentioned to the media in his first time talking with them in preparation for Arizona, you got to go to work. Players got to play, and the NFL has said they plan on having these Week 18 games go as scheduled, beginning Saturday, and then of course on Sunday as well, which the Niners will take on the Arizona Cardinals. And so now these guys got to bounce back, and they got to try to get to it, and they do so taking on an Arizona Cardinals team that comes in a little bit banged up, but Niners obviously playing for something, playing for that
Hmm.
number one seed. Of course, they need a win and they need Philly to lose. But you can argue, and I'll of course hear what you have to say about this. You can argue that Arizona has something to play for in JJ Watt, with this being his last game in an NFL uniform. How much could that be a rallying thing for them as they try to send him out on a high note, or guys already on vacation?
Man, there are so many moving vans packed. The trucks are loaded. All these dudes are waiting to shower so they can zip up their personal bags and toss them in the back and keep it moving. Please, JJ. Man, they ain't thinking about JJ. They all know they're going home. JJ's going home. They're going home. All of them going on vacation right now. What they're doing, cats right now are worried about their jobs. Forget JJ. JJ is good, and he's retiring and walking off into the sunset and everything else he wants to do. There are some guys on that team that know this may be their last game, because there could possibly be a new coaching staff. All kind of things happen when you start losing like this. So that's what they're concerned with. So I mean, bottom line, rallying for JJ, they're gonna be trying to rally for themselves.
Maybe maybe a new GM too out there in Arizona. Uh,
Exactly.
so uh, I haven't heard anything definitive about Debo, but you would think he may be able to get back out there this week. The window has been open for Elijah Mitchell to return. Whether we see him or not out there this week remains to be seen. But you're in that situation where, of course, you want to hold on to that number two,
Yeah.
and of course try to get the number one, but you can't have one without the other, right? Meaning, like, without a win, unless Minnesota, of course, were to lose as well, which is a possibility. Then you got to play this game, right? I
Well,
mean,
exactly. But there's relevance to this game. So you play this game and you try to win this game because first of all, you want to keep yourself in the best position you can possibly be in. You play the game as hard as you can. If you lose the game, you lost the game. This team is built to go on the road anyway. Number two seed, you got to you have to expect to go on the road. I don't think they will, but you'll have to expect to go on the road. But you play this game because there is something to gain by doing so. If you had the number one seed sold up, if there was an opportunity for you to move up, if there wasn't an opportunity for you to lose the number two seed, then I think you can look at it differently. Because there are a lot of clubs that say, "Oh, well, you don't want to lose a game going into the playoffs." Well, it's no, you never want to lose a game, but you also don't lose your confidence if you lose a game when you know all your people aren't playing and you know why guys aren't playing, and you know the reason why you're resting. '94 Super Bowl, last game of the year, we were playing against the Minnesota Vikings that needed to win that game big time. Um, for their positioning, we already had the number one seed. We went into that game. I think we were 13-2 going into that game. Well, not 13 because we ended up 13-3. So we were what, 12-2. But how do those numbers go? That's only 14 games. Look, we were what
13
am I
and
saying?
2. 13
13
and
and 2.
yeah.
We were 13-2. Yeah, 13-2. Yeah. Um,
I can't
and
get
we
more
easy,
intricate with the math than that,
and
Edie.
we
That's
and
about
well, you
all
know
I.
what, dude? That's the hits in the head. I'm like,
That's all I can
and then
help
I'm
you
thinking
with.
about, well, you know what got me? I
Don't
was
hit me
like,
with
wait a
no
minute.
division or nothing like that, or no
But
multiplication.
no, you know what got me? I was like, wait a minute. I said, when I was like 13-2, and I was like, wait a minute, no, this is 17 games. It threw me off.
Yeah,
Like, no,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started thinking about, wait a minute, that's not enough games. But anyway, we so it didn't it we want of course we wanted to win. We always played to win, but nobody lost their mind when we didn't win the game, especially since the starters were out. It started the second half, they started taking starters out. By the fourth quarter, nobody was in the game. So that it's just one of those things how they look at it. But I think, yeah, they definitely have to play it. They definitely have to play it. They definitely have to
Well, how about this?
mhm,
The Eagles and the Niners play at the same time,
yeah.
but you would have known already whether Minnesota won or not. So I guess the question is, how important is the 1 seed, right? If Minnesota loses, for example, you locked up the 2.
Hmm.
Do you still? How do you approach it? Do you still
Of
approach?
course, you still have a chance to get the one.
So you still go after it?
Of course, you go after, because if you win, you got a chance. You don't have a chance if you lose. So you go after. You have an opportunity to have the number one seed, and if you get that, that means that to get to the Super Bowl, you got to come through the field of dreams. Who wouldn't want that? You don't have to worry about going anywhere to play in weather. You don't have to worry about not sleeping in your own bed. You have your crowd, and the Field of Jeans is becoming a pretty tough place. It's starting to develop its own history. You got another playoff run in there. It's going to be tough for an opponent to come in there. Why would you not play for that? I think that'd be almost crazy to not play for that. So of course you want the number one seed. Um, and there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell they won't go to the Super Bowl if they get the number one seed.
Interesting. I don't disagree with that. It is interesting though, from a standpoint that, as you mentioned, if there is a team that's built for the playoffs and built to play anywhere, right, that would be the
Mm-hmm.
Niners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the 2 locked up, I could see that for precautionary reasons. Just, maybe you go out there, you play the first half, and second half you kind of.
With an opportunity to get number one, impossible. Impossible.
Well, if you get the number 1 seed, that's also the way they do it now. I mean, that's all. That's the only buy too.
That's the only buy. That's what I'm saying. You have an opportunity to rest this late in the season. You give Bosa, Trent Williams, Debo. Everybody gets extra time. Mitchell, everybody gets extra time. McCaffrey gets all. Think about all the pounding he's taking the last 7-8 weeks. He gets an opportunity to just let his body and some of the bruises mend. All of you start thinking about all of those things that Fred Warner and Armstead, everybody. Like that's another week that Kinlaw could, like all of these type things you start looking at. That, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, no, I hear you. Um, it'll be the Niners and the Cardinals at the Field of Dreams to wrap up the 2022 regular season. 1:25 p.m. local kickoff on Fox. Chris Myers, Robert Smith, speaking of the Vikings, and Jennifer Hale on the call, if you're into that sort of thing. Now in time, ED, for your keys. Keys coming up against the Cardinals here to wrap up this season. Number 1 on the line. We just talked about the importance of potentially being able to get that number 1 seed and hold on to number 2 as well.
Well, I already mentioned part of it. Just don't get hit by the moving trucks. That's all. Just know that they will be out there on the field. So this is last week.
All the U-Hauls gonna be out there on the field.
It's gonna be U-Hauls everywhere. So avoid the U-Hauls. That's it. Make certain you keep your head on a swivel, because they will be running across the field. I'm telling you. I've been in this situation playing guys that have nothing and no care in the world, that their season has been over. The Cardinal season has been over since sometime in November. So trust me, there's no win one for the Gipper in them. That season has been over for a long time. Guys are just playing for their own jobs. That's what happens in situations like that. I've been on teams that had bad seasons like that, and you get guys that are strictly playing for their jobs. The Niners just need to not do what they did last year. Last week? The hardest thing to do in sports is to not play according to your competition. That's one of the hardest things for a good team. Your standard is your standard. Your level of play has to be maintained, and you do not allow your opponent to dictate that. That has to come from within. We saw, you've heard me say that 1,000 times. Last week, you saw it. You saw what happened. There's no way that team should have been able to play with them like that. They made it a struggle. Do not do that this week. There's no reason for you to look ahead, play the game that you are playing at the level that you have been playing, and this game against the Cardinals will be as easy as the last one. They don't have the talent to play with you, so don't even give them the chance to do it. You don't have to play perfect. You can make mistakes. You can have a penalty here and there. Doesn't matter. You're better. Play at your level. Play at your speed. You win the game.
Those are ED's keys here on the Believe in 49ers podcast. Niners hosting the Cardinals, Week 18, 2022 regular season finale, 1:25 p.m. on Fox. Uncertain what Arizona's going to do at the quarterback position. It was David Blau last week. It looks like Colt McCoy may be back for this week in the finale. So question mark there. Not really sure who's going to be the signal caller for the Cardinals. But if it looks like it may be Colt, at least that's what they're leaning towards at this part of the week. But of course, by time the game starts, you'll know what you have to do for that number 2 seed if you're the Niners, and then you'll be playing at the same time as the Eagles for potentially that number 1 seed. And so you need the Eagles to lose and a win if you're going to be able to grab a hold of that 1 seed. As always, we like to continue to encourage you to download, subscribe, rate, and review located wherever you find your podcast. If there's a like or follow button on your particular podcast subscription service, give us go ahead, hit that like or follow button. Give us a like on YouTube as well. That's Believe in 49ers, BLEAV. Hit us up on social media. I'm at Haylock on Twitter. He is at _Eric Davis _. And on Instagram, I'm at Watch Ray Ray. He is at ED25. So for my partner, Super Bowl champion Eric Davis, I'm Rahshaun Haylock. This has been the Believe in 49ers podcast on Believe. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.